But today we're going to be speaking about adaptability and agility and how to stay flexible in times of volatility and change. My name is Lindsay Hepburn and I'm a principal within Cresa, and I specialize on the retail leasing side as well as the investment sales. And I'm pleased to be the moderator for our panelists of great leaders within our industry. The three panelists are all within the commercial real estate field, but they all have different specialties. We have strategy and project management, design, and lease audit. And we chose to do this webinar essentially on change to discuss everything from what we're going through right now in COVID-19, but also diversity and inclusion and technology, and looking at each of these points of major change and how we as organizations and individuals have been able to adapt and how we continue to be agile and adapt. So before I get started, and I know I've mentioned it a couple times for those who have joined early, we are going to go over a couple of housekeeping items. You are all on mute and your videos off. Let's keep it that way. And if there's any questions that you would need to have, send me a quick message through the chat function. And if the panelists are speaking at that point in time, I will either hold it or integrate it into our conversation or hold it until the end for the question and answer period. We are going to be recording this session as well. So the format of the webinar, it's going to be more of a fireside chat. We're going to start with a couple rapid fire questions for our panelists. I'm then going to introduce each of them formally, and then we'll go into the session with some more question and answer period. The questions will be around 40 to 50 minutes, give or take, and then we'll have some time for questions to follow that. It's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists, three women with whom I've had the good fortune of getting to know over the past number of years through the Cresa and SDI family. We have Barb Wright, Joan Chan, and Maria Nenciu. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, now it's we're going to pop right into the rapid fire section. And Joanne, I'm going to start with you with a rapid fire. What makes you laugh the most?
My team members.
Barb, what about yourself?
Well, I love it when people get silly and just get out of their own personality. I think we just share a lot that way.
And Maria, yourself?
I'd say children. I find them naturally funny.
And Barb, what is your favorite food?
Oh, vanilla ice cream, no question.
Joanne, what's yours?
So many. Sour keys primarily.
Oh, okay. And Maria, yourself?
Oh, I prefer Hungarian and Moroccan cuisine.
Very nice. You guys could have a nice little buffet between the three of you.
That'd be nice.
Maria, what has been your COVID-19 guilty pleasure?
Oh, knitting and crocheting. I learned the skill in the middle school and didn't practice much until recently. Being confined to indoors and looking for activities to relax in my downtime, I started again crocheting and I found it very relaxing, and the end results are beautiful and useful.
Barb, yourself?
Oh, sleeping in till 6 o'clock in the morning.
I like that. That's your guilty pleasure is 6 o'clock sleep in. And Joanne, what about yourself?
I have a lot of vices, but my biggest growth in terms of time spent is I have extended my playing time on Candy Crush.
Oh. And for the three of you again, so our webinar is about adaptability and agility. So if you can, in one word, describe what that means to you. Maria?
I would say challenge, perhaps. Today's economy, agility and adaptability have become desired competencies. They both demonstrate the importance of not being static, but instead embracing unpredictability and aligning business practices to environmental change. And for an organization, it takes both competencies to thrive and deliver outstanding success.
And Joanne, what would you be your word for those two, agility and adaptability?
I think it's actually that those two words add together equals transformation. One of the things that I think a lot of people have more time to pause, to think, to kind of reflect on the last 365 days or so, and really to not only transform personally, but also from a career as well as our industry or as well as their business. I think there's an opportunity there to be transformative.
And Barb, yourself?
I think they both invoke anxiety in people. Both of them involve change, and change is always difficult for some people, and I think it just makes people anxious until they can find a new sense of comfort with the change around them.
So thank you for your answers to those rapid fire questions. And now that we've had a chance to get to know you a little bit better, I am going to introduce you formally to the group for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure of getting to know you. Barb, I'll start with you. Barbara Wright, you've been a principal at Cresa for most of its evolution. You've been there for the past 23 years and have worn many hats. And on today's webinar, we're going to be talking about really how you have built your client strategy and implemented the project management for your clients over the years, mainly in the office and industrial portion. And I know that prior to your career here, you had an entirely different career where you spent almost 3 decades working in an architecture firm. And Barb is also LEED accredited, and she owns racehorses. Joan Chan is the principal of and creative director of SDI Design, which is a company that works very closely within Cresa in a partnership where it's an award-winning commercial architecture design firm that focuses on workplace design within Canada. And you've held this position and worked closely with Barb for the past 20 years. And Joanne, I know that you were recently appointed as a board member for the Association of Interior Designers of Ontario, and you've been recognized within the International Women's Day 2021 for Women for Change series. So congratulations on those two. And prior to getting into commercial real estate, I know that you were in sales in the automotive industry. And just on a personal note, I know that you have a son who's turning 15, and you've helped him grow his macaroon business. So you're not only a rock star within your own industry, but helping the next generation find their path. And Maria, and you're the head of the lease audit and reconciliation department within Cresa. You've held previous positions as a senior bilingual property accountant, an affiliate member of the Association of Certified Forensic Investigators of Canada. Prior to moving to Canada, I know that you studied as a chemical engineer, and you served in the armed forces and still like to go to the shooting range with your husband and 3 sons. So again, welcome to the 3 of you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
So I'm going to get into the question session now. And as I start to ask you questions, I think it's important to note that our personal lives have integrated very much into our professional lives. And you might hear my dog barking in the background. We might see a cat making its screen debut. We might have spouses or children working on the other end of the dining room table as their office. So as I'm asking questions, I'd really like to know the answer in a professional experience, but also how you as an individual have adapted through the change. So we'll keep it in the lens that we're all people and we know each other professionally, but these answers can be a hybrid of both. As I spoke in the introduction about each of you, you have all had different lives prior to joining into commercial real estate, and you were doing something different, and in many cases, much different than today. So what led you to make these changes, and how have you adapted within those big transitional timeframes? Joanne, or sorry, Barb, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Well, thanks, Lindsay. When I think about it, I probably didn't think about it at the time, but it was probably a midlife crisis for me. As you mentioned, I've been at my previous position for close to 30 years, 27 years to be exact. I started there as a secretary, and I had the good fortune of working with someone who's a great mentor and someone who pushed me to just continue to improve and learn more about the industry that I was in at the time. I pursued my MBA as a mature student, and I was fortunate to be recognized as the first female associate in that architectural firm, which was quite an honor at that time. But as time passed, I really plateaued. There was nowhere further for me to go within the organization. There didn't seem to be any new challenges coming my way. So I felt at that point in time, if I didn't make change, it would be too late in life to do so. But when I decided to make a change, I really was very careful. I remember a recruiter telling me I would change 5 times before I found what I wanted. But I was very, very careful to make sure that when I did change, it was for a position that I knew where I could make an impact there, and I could work with people who I really would enjoy being with. I found my position at Cresa at that time. I believe I've adapted well. I believe I've made an impact on the organization and some of the people around me. And it really has been a win-win situation for me. But I think one of the really important things is I was able to adapt because I actually initiated the change. It wasn't forced upon me, which makes a difference.
An important one to note. Joanne, what had led you into the position that you are today?
So as you mentioned, Lindsay, I did sell cars and I also sold lighting and furniture. So when I graduated from art school, it's kind of hard to become an artist and make a living. So one of the things I found myself into is getting a job. But one of the things that I think I've learned in those positions is that many of us decided to, go into a specific professional career and forget that communication is really important. So having those positions as a sales associate, selling used Volkswagen, so cliche, used car salesman, was able to taught me what I need to do is to sell myself as a designer. So I went back to school, knowing that I need to get a job and I want to be in the creative field. So I interned in an architectural firm during school, and a lot of sort of defeat during those days because, as a young person, there's so many of us. And so one of the things I realized is that, I do need to make a decision. So in many ways, I think the career that I have kind of fit me perfectly. Beautiful things, wonderful people. I love to talk. So it's a sort of a pair of a career. But from a professional standpoint, I think being able to try a lot of things was those different experiments when I was younger led me to a career that I'm not afraid to try other things when I'm in my current position.
And Maria, yourself?
I was born and raised in Romania. And like any parent, my parents wanted to offer us kids a better future. And at that time, Eastern Europe was not the place for that. So the first change for me came when I left my country in the late 80s. Once I arrived in Canada, my intent was to resume my studies in chemical engineering. But due to health reasons, I had to choose a different profession that turned out to be accounting. And this was actually my second change that I went through. After living 16 years in Montreal, we found new and exciting opportunities in Toronto. So we decided to move. And that was my third change. Lastly, it was the change from working for as a property accountant for landlords to working as a lease auditor representing and helping tenants. With this current role, I feel that I achieved what I always wanted, to do what I love the most, and I can't be happier.
Excellent. And as we're talking about change, obviously, and I mentioned when we first got on, we can't talk about change without talking about what's happened with this tiny little thing that's happened this last year throughout the entire world. And I know for our office, it happened to land on Friday the 13th. So that Friday, we ended up closing our office. And although we've been open through phases, we haven't been open to the same extent in almost a year. So coming up a year. This is something that many people have spoken about. It's going to be a hard one to nail down to a specific, but what have your clients seen as their biggest change? And more importantly, how have you seen them adapt through those changes as we've come through almost a year? And how have they shown their agility? Joanne, on your design side, I'm going to start with you.
So a lot of our clients in the beginning was very reactionary, I think. Most of us were, making sure that our team members are safe, making sure that the business is intact. So there's a lot of those sort of, I often say it's like a 7-step of grief or something. So, denial, acceptance, anger, and all those feeling comes out. But I think as the world changed, people have actually, and companies have adapted quite rapidly. I think they have become more innovative. They became more flexible about their business, and they also was more determined to make sure that we're going to come up on the other end more successful than they got into it. So there's a lot to be said how companies have adapted. So some have done nothing and some has done a lot. So depending on what industry you're in, I think there's a different strategy to attack in terms of what remote work is about, how to address their staff and team members, their emotional requirement and wellness. And also technology is the biggest change, I think. A lot of technology has come to adapt what we call, work from home, as well as, meeting booking system, seat booking system. A lot of those technology has come to market. So I think the world has shifted to become more agile in the sense of adapting to what potentially could be a very positive comeback.
That's great. And I like that you touched on technology, because we are going to go into that in a bit of a deeper level. But it's I think it's important to note that any of these changes, they're all intertwined, and it's definitely something that we've seen as being, look what we're doing right now. We're using technology in a different format than we may have been a year ago. Maria, for you, what have you seen for your clients as being one of the biggest changes?
Yeah, and to Joanne's point, definitely, we woke up overnight in a new reality and forced us all to change, and this cannot be achieved without flexibility and openness. But our clients are businesses renting commercial space, paying an increased amount of rent while businesses were closed or running at a minimum is not an option. So business owners started looking towards downsizing space, deferring or lowering rent payments. Although this may be an option for some, other opportunities, I'd say it's to keep costs under control and to do a review of your landlord's compliance with various provisions under your unique lease. So lease audit is something that I'm glad to notice that more and more tenants are looking forward to as helping them these days. So.
And Barb, if you're taking one of your many hats, but you're thinking about your strategy clients, maybe on the office side, what have you seen with them?
Well, I think to the points made previously, our clients really were very agile. They were able to turn on a dime and make sure that their businesses continue to operate without any perceivable interruption. I have clients who went to the length of making sure that their employees were fitted out at home. If they needed their chairs brought from the office, that was done so that they could at least function at some level, understanding that many people don't have a proper setup at home. So I think there was a real focus on ensuring that employees felt some level of continuity and connection if they could. I think one of the biggest challenges for these people in adapting is that it is difficult. The isolation that people are feeling, the lack of connectivity that people are feeling due to the length of this disruption has created a lot of stress for people. So I think particularly HR and facilities people are still trying to help their people adapt and make sure that they do have some level of support and the emotional support and the social support to the degree that they can. So that is not particularly real estate related, but I think it's organizational. And I think it's something that most companies have tried to cover off during this period of time.
I think your answer is fantastic, because part of the second question that I wanted to ask each of you is, how have you individually adapted? And I know, again, talking about many hats, it's not just what you have in your personal life, but caring for family members, caring for people in your own household, maybe family and friends. So I'll ask you again, Barb, with yourself, how have you noticed your certain changes at home, or how have you adapted to maybe carrying a bit of a heavier load on your shoulders, where it's not a separation between your work life and your home life?
Well, that's very true, Lindsay. To me, adaptation is an ongoing process. You don't adapt in a minute. You know, it takes time to absorb changes and internalize them. For me, I'm lucky. I have a dedicated home office, so I was able to set up here and operate on a somewhat regular basis. But I think for a lot of people, it's just been difficult because we're not together to bounce off ideas. This concept of having to book time with people instead of just walking over to them and having a conversation is something that everyone has gone through, and it makes it much more difficult sometimes to develop sort of out-of-the-box ideas, if you will. And you know, on a personal level, I have an aging mother who fortunately is very healthy, but I've done double duty, as you say, trying to make sure that she has everything she needs because she can't get out. And there are a lot of people who are just spread that way. You know, we have to look after ourselves, but we have to look after our families as well, in a way that we didn't have to before, perhaps.
Yeah. And Joanne, I'm going to ask you the same question again, knowing that your son would have been off school for a little while and working from home, and you run SDI. How have you balanced, or how have you managed those two, being a mother and being the leader of a company?
Well, I'm grateful to have a very, very robust supporting system. Even though we're not together, we, as the teammates, I think we check in with each other. We make sure that, you know, we at least speak to somebody during the day that's not about work. Another version of that would be, you know, I'm really grateful to have a supporting family. So my husband has taken on tutoring my son, which is fantastic. And the macaroon business, I'm really the marketing lady. Darren, my husband, has extended his open kitchen, has spent hours and hours teaching my son how to make macaroons. So in many respects, I'm really grateful to have people around me that has taken some of the load off from ourselves. So as a female and male, you know, society in terms of mother and father and business owners, I think it became more democratic in a sense of like, you know, instead of saying, well, it's your job, you do this, we've become much more concerned about the end goal. So I guess empathy is one of the biggest message of the year 2020 and 2021. So having those elements in life is I think I'm very grateful to have people around me that help me do what I do best.
It takes a village, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Maria, what about yourself?
Honestly, I had difficulties adapting, both professionally and individually. I'm not 100% adapted, and I don't intend to. I can't wait to get back to normal, but I'll do my best. It's an ongoing process. I'm honored. I'm grateful for having the great support that Cresa is offering, and having meetings face to face helps a lot, and we have that sort of contact with each other, which comes a bit close to what it used to be before, when we used to meet face to face, have business lunch. On a personal level, I have a young, great son. I haven't had a chance to see him. I can't wait to be able to do that. So it definitely affects us, but we're hopeful that soon that's going to happen, and we'll be able to interact again. But again, I'm grateful for all the help and support that I get from everybody around me, both professionally and personally. So look forward to better days ahead.
Switching gears, now we are in, I guess, the International Women's Week, but on Monday was International Women's Day, and we have a panel today of all women. So I did want to speak about diversity and inclusion in our industry specifically. I believe it was last Tuesday, the Globe and Mail had an article that was talking about women in commercial real estate, and they were interviewing 5 people all across the board and throughout Canada. And within that article, it was mentioning a study that was done by CREW, which is the Commercial Real Estate Women's Network. It was done in 2019. And it said that in commercial real estate, from anything from the investment side to construction side, there are about 15% of the top management positions are held by women. And I did a little bit more research into that, and I found out that within the sales representatives, brokerage side of the business, there are a bit more. There's about 19% women, but there's only 3% people of color. And I was actually shocked to learn that, just to see it in the figures. So when we're talking about age and gender and ethnicity, these are all ways that we can improve our diversity and inclusion. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put a positive spin on it and say, who's a person, or what is a memory that you have of a positive example of someone who might have been in the lesser percentages within our industry, who inspires you or has shown great creativity? And Maria, I'm going to start with you on that one.
One example that I could talk about is actually I would like to talk about Cresa. I've joined the company almost 3 years ago, so I haven't had a chance to get to know well everybody. But one thing that I noticed rapidly in the past year or so was that Cresa has more than 40 staff individuals that sit on Diversity and Belonging Council, helping to develop and implement different initiatives. And I believe this is a great initiative that should go on and should continue to evolve. And I've noticed that the request to participate and help and support has been tremendous. And everybody wants to get involved and help at the every single office level. And I think this helps employee resource group to navigate the way. I would say that these resource groups, I see them help a lot. Everybody navigate their way around the company, find the community that fits them well, discover synergies they probably didn't know it ever existed. So I believe overall that this is a great example, and it is vital for the company to grow and success. So.
Great. And Barb, I'll ask you.
Well, the person that stands out in my mind is my colleague, Joanne. When I first met Joanne almost 20 years ago, just think about it. She was young, she was female, she was Chinese, and a designer trying to break through in what was predominantly a white male-dominated industry. And to boot, when I met her, she had purple spiked hair, so she just had everything stacked against her. But what she had going for her were all of the things that you can't see. She's a gifted designer. She's very talented. She has an engaging personality. She has a tenacity that really is just so admirable. She's just like a bulldog when she gets onto things. And she's got a real strong work ethic. So you know, in a world where she might have just been so isolated, she worked hard, she learned, she engaged herself with people. And one of the things that eventually happened, I mean, she now owns her own design firm, but she surrounded herself with people who could support her in the tough times. It certainly hasn't been a smooth trajectory for her. There were days that were really a struggle, and there were days where there were some tears, but you know, she stayed strong, and she's got a good support network. She has a great team around her now, and she's just a real good example of what a woman who had things stacked against her can achieve.
You're gonna make me cry now, Barb.
But it's true. It's true.
Thank you very much for the kindness.
And Joanne, what about yourself?
Well, on the opposite side, when I started this career, there wasn't many women who was in any leadership position. Most designers are, actually, funny enough, most designers are female. 20 years ago, the majority of the firms in Toronto are run by male principals. And, you know, I worked at a firm that was owned by my previous partner who was a male. And there was very few female, there was a few female real estate agents. There's probably no female project manager at that point in time. And Barb is the person that I, you know, got really connected with. And as an immigrant, you know, people still joke around, everybody in the office joke around that I still can't write to save my life. And Barb has been very kind to say, you know, it's okay to not know everything, and she was very supportive in many things. We weren't really working together closely at that point, but I saw Barb as a person that, as she mentioned, she switched career halfway through. She is one of the most licensed female person that I've known. She has an MBA. She works in an architectural firm, so she can read drawings. She's got lease certification. She's a broker. Like, there's so many things this woman had that I was like, wow, she's so cool. And she was one of the few people that actually lended a hand and helped my career. So I think in many respects, you know, it looked like only days ago I had pink hair and purple hair and braces. But it, you know, that 20 years flew by so quickly. Flew by so quickly, and I really appreciate Barb, you know, support. And my nickname for her is Barbie, and her nickname for me is Jojo.
It is great that you have that camaraderie, and just a personal antidote for myself, as I've been within the Cresa family for just over 7 years. And I'll say that having seen the two of you interact and within the organization, it's so nice to see people. It's not a Cresa commercial, but it's so nice to work with people that truly enjoy each other and that are able to support each other inside and outside of the network. And I just love that the two of you have over 2 decades of stories and ups and downs. And as you said, Barb, tears and joy and everything that goes along with a really good supportive connection. And that actually leads into the other question that I'll have is, all three of you are leaders within the community. You're leaders within your individual segments within the community. So if you go back to the spiky purple hair braces, Joanne, or anyone who's starting off in the career, what can you say to someone who's looking at the three of you as thought leaders and drivers within the industry? How do you help them move forward, either as an individual, or how can an organization help people feel comfortable as much as we might feel within our organization? Joanne, why don't you take the lead on that one?
So I would say for a lot of younger women in the industry, I think finding a mentor, just like I have, not just Barb, but many others, I've been able to find mentors to learn from. And also, I think work ethics is really important. And I think from the pandemic side, a lot of us have lost that connection of mentorship, potentially not able to express their frustration. So one of the things I think when we go back to somewhat a normal scenario, Having an opportunity to find mentorship is really important, but also having hope is probably one of the most thing I would tell a young designer. And I myself do mentor a few people, and I do tell them it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to need to work hard now because you have an end goal. So having those milestones that you set for yourself and be okay to be wrong. And I love my life because I try so many things and nothing really pans out the way I want to. And having, so many adventures. And if you are a designer, true creative person, this is very cliche to say, it's the journey that counts, not the destination.
Maria, what about yourself? How would you encourage someone coming up in the career?
Well, there's no straight path to becoming a lease auditor. From what I know, there are no university studies that prepare students to become a lease, to have a lease audit diploma at the end of it. But one way to get there, if you're passionate about helping people in real estate, is to, if you have experience in either property accounting or leasing, anything in real estate, basically. And if you're passionate about helping business owners control their costs, persistent and hardworking, lease audit might be for you. But to Joanne's point, I would like to emphasize the fact that having a mentor to lead the way, to show you the right way helps a lot. So don't be afraid. When I got into this profession as a lease auditor, I didn't know what to expect, but I was ready for any challenges. I took them straight on, and I'm happy to this day. So.
Excellent. And Barb, yourself?
Oh, I think we've heard the word passionate a few times here, and I think that's something that's very important. You have to be passionate about what you do. For me, I've had a long career, and it's never been about just having a job. You want to be able to get up in the morning and be glad to go to work. You want to be working with people that you enjoy, that you respect, and do something that's going to challenge you. So don't settle for less than you can be. Always challenge yourself to learn a little more, to be a little better, and to reach out to people and see if you can help them grow as well. But I think there's just so much opportunity in this industry for young people. They may not be exposed to it enough. They may not understand that everyone doesn't have to be a frontline commission salesperson. There are many roles that you can undertake, and as we said, the lease audit side, you can do strategy, you can do project management. There are just so many roles for people, and I think perhaps we as an industry have not exposed that to individuals, and I think it's important that we bring new people in and help them find their way through some of those roles.
I think that you're so right, because there's so many people who think that you need to be in the trenches, working on deals, being the salesperson, and then they might think that that's not their personality, versus someone saying you can do any different segment within our commercial real estate industry, but it doesn't mean that you have to be client facing. And I think that that's a really important note, that there is so much more to it, and people are able to work with analytical personalities and sales personalities and everywhere in between, and be successful.
Also, I think also it's maybe another version of it would be to know what you're not good at and be okay with it. So
Yes.
You can try many things, like, we all did. We have different kind of careers before we settled to our current one. I didn't want to sell cars at the end of the day. So I think it's okay to be wrong. And I think our generation these days have this sort of expectation that can't be wrong. And I don't know what came about and how the education system shifted, but just like science, a scientist like, Maria, the only reason why you're successful is because you fail a few times.
We learn from mistakes.
Engineer has a saying, we only succeed because we fail. And so a lot of times, I don't think young people should really focus on the failure, but the lesson well learned from the failures, and be okay that this is not the right path for me. I'm going to do a pivot or do a change and whatnot, and then get to the next milestone. Because everything that we've learned throughout our entire life. So being a car salesman, you know what I learned? I've learned not to get conned, because I was the con. I was selling people used cars. Therefore, I go, okay, I realize it's so easy to manipulate the situation. And I've learned that, so that in my industry, when I go into the world of construction, we want to be fighting the right battle and winning the right war. So I don't think we should be afraid of failure.
I think that's perfect. And we're going to switch gears now a little bit we're coming up about 15 minutes before 2 o'clock. So I'm going to ask you quickly with technology. We all know that technology is one of the fastest changing items that we need to deal with. And just doing again a little bit of research here is that Google has 5.8 billion searches per day, or 70,000 searches every second. So people are very much using the internet. There's over 4.5 billion people who are on the internet, and then 3.8 who are active on social media. How are your clients adapting to the forms of technology? Joanne, I feel like your clients might be a little bit more in the forefront, so I'm going to start with you on that.
Well, in terms of technology, there's the infrastructure technology, and also, there's the online support, mobile work technology. So I would say there's a lot of innovation coming out for the mobile work support technology, and also technology that has to do with the actual environment. So resiliency of the environment of, bacteria and so on and so forth. There's a lot of biotech that's coming out as well. So, but as company have learned that they were probably 20% ready for mobile work, probably, 2 years ago, a year ago. They're 100% adapted now. So every single client are able to work remote. So if we had a choice, why should we go back to the office? And, I would say that I wouldn't have a business if I don't have an office. None of us would have a business. But I would say I think everybody is wanting and craving for the togetherness, not necessarily just because we need to collaborate. We just want to be with each other. We're human beings. So technology has not been able to substitute that. So the next version of it is that instead of just remote work or just in-person collaboration, we'll see more of a blended solution, so that we have to adapt to in-person and remote together. How do you create a synergy between a bunch of people on the screen like we're doing right now, and then the 5 people on the side? So there's this sort of dynamic that we need to shift. So a lot of organizations like Microsoft, like many others, have tried to figure out a technology that will change your perspective from a physicality and a digital physical presence of a digital format and an actual format. So I'm very excited to see that happening.
I like what you said the other day, Joanne, too, about having 4 generations of people within your office, and then how people bring different technology or different styles within that, just learning, or how people are used to presenting to clients. It's
yes, because I am a paper hoarding person, and I have a team member that does not use a piece of paper, and then we still struggle working together. So yes, I think this cross, in terms of inclusivity and, gender and age and all these different things, I think one of the things that we should celebrate is that as a city in Toronto, or Canada as a country, I'm an immigrant, and I've never felt being excluded. So in many ways, I think because the way we are in our industry, some might say it's not as inclusive as we want to, and we're striving to do better. But a lot of times I do celebrate, and I do appreciate that the fact that we do have already a lot of strong pillars built into our system to allow people, Maria and myself are both immigrants. And so I would say, allowing us to be able to adapt and move forward. And that has to do with, Barb. I love Barb, telling me that she could find the archive from, 16 years ago. where do you find that person? You find Barb. So there's this sort of nicety about this sort of expansion of definition of work.
I'm going to ask you individual questions now. Barb, for you, I know that when your word that you had said in the beginning was anxious, is what you kind of felt with the adaptability and agility. And I think anxious is a great word for the question I'm about to ask you. You having been involved in commercial real estate for a number of volatile markets, and that can mean your up markets and down markets. And I like to look at it with a positive lens. Right now, if you're in the industrial side, you're looking at a very positive volatile market, and with rent or per square foot net rents being above $10 and a vacancy that's sub 2. I heard today on a phone call that even in the States, it's getting above $15 per foot. But in the office side, I know that we reported in our Q3 report that the vacancy was about 3.7, and looking into Q4 of this year, vacancy can be 7.2 or even higher than that. So in times of agility and volatility, or I should say in times of volatility, how have you seen people hold firm, or do they?
Well, I think most of our clients are trying to take a long-term view of things. They're trying to avoid a knee-jerk reaction, and I think most of them have done well at doing that. Most people, I do think, believe that the office will continue to exist and survive. It may be different. It may be scaled back a little bit, but I think you know, all ongoing businesses are still going to have a place to operate in the future. So while people continue, I think, to assess their needs and perhaps be a little bit nervous about the unknown, I think there is certainly an outlook that things will improve as we pull out of this, and that the office situation will, if not stabilized, then it will calm down a little bit. But I think part of the challenge for our clients, obviously, is that they still have leases, that they have obligations that they have to meet. There has not necessarily been a softening of the landlord's perspective yet, although I think we're starting to see things change. But people who have lease commitments have to maintain them, or try and work around them in some way. But I think as we work with clients, we try to look at their individual requirements and counsel them the best we can, because nobody has a crystal ball, but just to hold steady if you can, and look at your long-term needs and work to ensure that whatever premises you have, if you have to downsize, okay, let's look at that. But if you believe you're going to grow when you come out of this, then perhaps there's a short-term bridge that you can put into place that continue to take a long-term view.
So really avoiding that knee-jerk reaction of something that's happened over a relatively short period versus, you know, a market that can come up and down.
Yeah.
And Maria, I'll tie in a little bit with technology as well as just with your clients right now. I know that everyone is trying to save money. Are you seeing any specific cost differentiators between 20 and 21? And then how are people or landlords being more adaptable to your conversations with them?
The big difference that I notice is between prior to 2020 and 2020 and 2021. Definitely there's a big difference there. And I want to mention that prior to the pandemic, it used to take me longer to get all the documents that I needed to do all my work, because we had meetings in person with the client. So the whole process was quite lengthy, as opposed to now everything being done online. It speeds up the process. It makes my work very, very efficient, and I can deliver in much shorter period of time, which is great. And what I have seen with 2020 year-end reconciliation slowly coming in is that some clients are looking and still talking to their landlords as to how can they reduce costs, because tenants are expecting operating expenses to be below in 2020 and even 2021. While landlords are implementing new rules, passing on increased costs in certain areas, such as cleaning, for example, or HVAC. So in my opinion, there's no one solution fit all. I would like to see landlord and tenants work together to find a solution to help each other and get through these challenging times. In parallel, us as lease auditors, we can help. We understand both landlord and tenants, and we are here to help and also look at the current leases, if they can be changed in any ways, implement new language, and ensure that the current 2020 and 2021 billing is done according to the lease. So there are many ways we can work with our clients to help them in these days.
Thank you. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions for anyone who has been on the webinar, anything that you're specifically asking about the design side, lease audit, in strategy and project management. We are going to follow up the session with an email and the contact information from everyone who's on the session here. But I'll just, I'll leave a moment for the chat function to start up. If there are no questions, and I'll say goodbye right now, and just thank you to the three of you for joining this session, for letting us know a bit more about your thoughts and how to manage the volatile market and your examples of agility and adaptability. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic day. Enjoy the sunshine and the warm weather. And again, thank you, all the three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go now, right?
Yep, I don't think there's no questions that have come in here, so I think we'll probably sign off and say thank you to everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Stay and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.